Alright, in this video we are going to address pipe fill or conduit fill. Just like before, if you watched my video on box fill, we talked about table 314.16a and 314.16b, where 314.16a was if all of my wires were the same size, I could just go to 314.16a and figure out what size box I needed to do. Well, there's a similar situation when it comes to pipe fill. In conduit fill, my insulation type is important. So, because the insulations are different thicknesses and it takes up more room in the conduit. Also, before when we talked about pipe fill or box fill, we counted all the grounds as one time, but we can't do that here. We have to count every single conductor because it's taking up space in the raceway. So, we do have our two situations, our two scenarios. We have if all of my wires are the same size and have the same insulation, we can go to what is called NEC. If you have the easy tabs, there's a tab for that. NEC in the 2017 code book, which I have in front of me, is found on page 712. And when you go to NEC, you will see this, essentially this table of contents right here that tells you what your raceway type is. What we have to pay particular attention to on this NEC is you'll see that there's a C.1 and there's a C.1a, and that goes for every single raceway type that we have. So you'll have EMT and also EMT, but you'll notice that C1A has this asterisk by it, and we come down here to the asterisk, we see that we use that table. It's the compact type of conductor. All right, and again, that would be specifically stated either on the question or in the field that you would be using compact conductors. Okay, so what we're going to do is I got a little sample question over here that just kind of gives you a how to use NEC, and it says, what is the maximum number of number 6 gauge THW copper conductors permitted in a 1-inch EMT? Now, the one thing I didn't show you guys yet is this is the table of contents essentially. It goes from 1 all the way down to 13A. But if we look at the page numbers on that, it starts on page 713 and goes all the way down to page 789. So I don't want you guys thumbing through for 10 minutes to try to figure out where your raceway is. So pretty pleased with sugar on top. Use this table of contents for your raceway type. All right. In this case here, we're pretty lucky because this question's asking us about EMT, and that is table 1, which is going to start on the next page. So we are looking for number 6 gauge THW copper conductors. So let's go over here. And again, the copper or aluminum isn't really relevant when it comes down to our wire. Well, yeah, because when it comes to our wire size, because the number 6 copper and number 6 aluminum are the same circular mill area. All right, so here I am in EMT, table C1. It doesn't say anything about it being a compact conductor. So I've got to now find that I'm in EMT. I need to find my THW insulation type. So I'm going to come through here and I'm going to look. Oh, there's THW. That was lucky. And now that we're at THW, we got to find number 6. So we don't see it here, then we be careful because this actually has the RHH, RHW, and RHW-2, 14, 12, 10, and 8. Then we get back into THW again, and here's our number 6 THW. So I'm going to scroll this, or actually I'll put that to the top of the page. So there's my number 6 THW. I'm going to scroll this over. Now, the one thing, actually, where we can see the THW. I will tell you guys that this is always the 3/8 column. They are listed at the top of every single one of them, but you'll notice that this is the 3/8 column. We don't have 3/8 EMT, 1/2 inch, 3/4, and 1 inch. All right, so 1 inch is going to be this column right here. I'll just keep my cursor on it. And we come down here to our THW and our number 6, and we see that we could put 4 number 12, or I'm sorry, 4 number 6 THWs and a 1-inch EMT. And again, because they're all the same size conductor and they're all the same insulation, I can use Annex C. Okay, so what if they're not? What if they are not the same size conductor, and what if they are not the same insulation type? Just like we had questions before with box fill. If that's the case, then you have to use two different tables. You have to go to Chapter 9, and Chapter 9, Table 4 is going to give you the amount of available space in the raceway, and Chapter 9, Table 5 is going to tell you what size conductor with what insulation type takes up how much space in that conduit. So I am going to go and I'm going to find Chapter 9, Table 4, because this is telling me let's read the question. Determine the minimum size IMC needed for the installation of 3 4-aught THW coppers, 3 2-gauge THW copper, and 3 number 1 THW copper conductors installed in the same conduit. So, we don't need to go to Chapter 9, Table 4 first. We need to go to Chapter 9, Table 5, because that is going to be our amount of space utilized for our raceway per conductor. So when we go to that, now you can find all these table numbers conveniently in your table of contents under the Chapter 9 tables. If not, Chapter 9 Table 1 and Chapter 9 Table 2 are on the front page, and if you flip the page, it's Chapter 9 Table 4. Chapter 9 Table 4 is only about 4 pages. Chapter 9 Table 5 is only a few pages. And then you'll have Chapter 9 Table 5A. And we'll talk about that here in a sec. So here I am, Chapter 9, Table 5, and it is aptly titled Dimensions of Insulated Conductors and Fixture Wires. So I am going to try to find my number 4-aught THW copper. So 4-aught THW copper. So let's find THW. And there's our THW. Now we got to find it in the 4-aught variety. And here's 4-aught THW copper right down here. And we see that the approximate area, we have to make sure we're the approximate area because that's what we're filling up. We're not filling up a diameter. We're filling up an area. So our 4-aught THW is going to be 0.3718. And we have 3 of them. So 3 times 0.3718. And that takes care of those. Now we got to find number 2, and luckily for us, all we got to do is go up a few rows there, and we see that our number 2 THW coppers are good for 0.1333, and there are 3 of those. 3 times 0.1333. And then last but not least, we have 3 number 1s, which is right underneath that. And we have 3 times 0.1901, and that takes care of that one. So I'm just going to do all this math at one time, and I'm going to punch up our calculator here. And I'm going to do 3 times 0.3718 plus 3 times 0.1333 plus 3 times 0.1901, and that is going to give me a total of 2.0856. 2.0856. 2.0856 cubic inches. All right, so that's the amount of space that those conductors that we already, or that we're going to pull, are going to take up in my raceway. So what I have to do now is I have to go to Chapter 9, Table 4. And Chapter 9, Table 4 is going to tell me my dimensions and percent area of conduit and tubing. So I'm going to go, and this is going to be IMC. So I'm going to go to my IMC, which this one right here we can see is electrical metallic tubing, Smurf tube or ENT, flexible metal conduit or flex, IMC, yay. So now we're at IMC, and you'll see on these, you have the trade sizes down these columns, and then you've got these other columns. I'll shrink this up a little bit so we can try to fit as many columns as we can into the frame. All right, so we're almost never going to use our total area 100% at the very far end, and we're not really worried about the diameter, so let me go ahead and squeeze those out anyway. These are the ones we're worried about. In fact, I just wanted to show you all the columns. I guess it was kind of a waste of time, but I'll apologize for that now. Here's the ones that I've got to focus on. Over 2 wires, which means that I'm going to have more than 2 wires. Yeah. And then I've got 1 wire. If I'm only pulling 1 wire, which typically is only going to be for a grounding situation. So if I only have 1 wire, I could use 53%. If I have 2 wires, no more, no less, I could use the 31% zone. But since we can see over here that I've got 9 conductors in this raceway, I'm sorry, the 60%. I don't know why they didn't write it on the 60%, but 60% is for the nipples rule. If you want, go back to Chapter 9, Table 1. There's notes to the tables, and I believe it's Note 4. I'll look real quick. It is Note 4 that tells you to use the 60% column. Why didn't they just write nipples on the top? I don't know for each one, but whatever. So I have now found IMC. I know I want to be in the over 2 wires 40%, and I want to find the square inches column because that is what I found, or that's the columns I used in Chapter 9, Table 5. So I'm looking for a value bigger than 2.09. So I'm going to scroll down. I'm still at IMC. And I found that's just under 2.09. It's 2.05. So I've got to come up here to 3 inch because that is a value of 3.169. So I know that I've got to use a piece of 3 inch IMC to actually complete this installation. Now the one thing that we need to be careful of is these are standard. We talked before about compact conductors. Chapter 9, Table 5A is going to give you your value for compact conductors. And again, that's found in your Chapter 9 tables in the table of contents.